All right, welcome in. Cube Show Podcast, college football podcast, usually coming to you on Sundays. And I think this might be, no, it's not 2 for 2. Didn't make it on Sunday last week. We did this week. And we want to talk more football. We've had a lot of lists. We've had a lot of kind of fun over the summer. We need to get into games. And we need to get in what's going to happen in some of these games. And when you go through the first couple weeks of the season, one thing sticks out. ACC, SEC. Collision course. So we're going to talk about it today with Roddy Jones of the ACC Network, go through all these early season matchups, specifically week 1, but one week 2, 1 week 3, 1 week 4, that we just want to take a peek at, just kind of get a little gander at what that thing might look like. So Roddy going to sit down with us for, almost 40 minutes today. It's a great conversation. He knows that league better than anybody. He knows ball as well as anybody. So we're going to get into it. Some nuts and bolts, some X's and O's. But y'all know each week we are brought to you by Wickles Pickles. By the way, had the pleasure of meeting Garland out at dinner last night, who kind of runs the show for me and Wickles Pickles. It was nice to meet you. There you go. Wickles Pickles, wickedly delicious. We've got them here in-house. We've got them in stock. We look for them in the stores. If they're not in your grocery store, ask them why. Tell them you need Wickles Pickles there. Go to WicklesPickles.com. Got some new flavors we're going to be telling you about soon, and maybe a couple things that we're going to be doing with Wickles Pickles over the next few weeks. But they sponsor us, so please take care of them. They help us. You help them. We appreciate it if you do. Let's move right in to Roddy Jones of the ACC Network. All right, I'm pumped to welcome in a good friend of mine, Roddy Jones with the ACC Network, has just risen through the company ranks, like skyrocketed the last couple of years, and deserves every second of it. But there are so many SEC-ACC matchups, Roddy, the first week and then the first couple weeks of the football season. I thought we had to get you in, talk about what these games are going to look like, because I can tell you this, at Media Days last week, I brought up a couple of these games and nobody even blinked an eye and nobody even kind of gave it a second thought. And I was just like, wait a minute now. Some of these games are not going to be what you guys think they're going to be, and maybe not the headliners that we're going to be talking about. Like, yeah, LSU, Clemson, everybody's going to talk about that. Bama, FSU is going to get a lot of attention. Well, Thomas Castellanos is making sure it gets attention on a very regular basis. But there's a couple of these, man, that I want to get into with you, because you know these teams, you know the staffs, you know the schemes, and just break them down a little bit. Maybe give some of the fans of these teams a real idea what these games are going to look like. So everything good with you? Good summer so far?
It has been, man. It was a fast summer.
So fast.
And we were just talking about being at Media Days. Like, ACC Media Day was a grind. And it's funny that you mentioned the perspective around the non-conference games. I think everybody kind of gets caught in their silo. There is cautious optimism in ACC country about these big matchups early in the year. Whether it's founded or not, I don't know. There's a lot of teams that got questions, but I think the ACC likes its chances in some of these matchups.
All right, let's get right into it. Syracuse, Tennessee, and this was like number 1 on my list. And all you got to do is go to Vegas and see Tennessee favor by 14. And I'm kind of like, what? Hold on a second now, because I have a lot of questions about Tennessee. There are parts I feel great about, but there are parts that I look at and say, you're going to have to prove that to me for me to really believe. And then just number 1, like, you listen to Fran Brown for 5 minutes and like you're in, you're sold. Like, you want to go play for him. You see why his players want to play for him. You bring in Steve Angeli, who we were both down there at the Orange Bowl. I mean, dude comes in throwing darts for Notre Dame in a college football playoff game, cold off the bench. I thought he was going to win that job. But I also love Ricky Collins, who they got from LSU. Talked to their coordinator about him last year, and they were like, man, if something were to happen to Garrett, like, we have a ton of confidence in this dude. Throws a beautiful ball. They made more adjustments at the line of scrimmage, where they really got some nice wins in the portal last year. I know they got Justice Ross Simmons there at wide receiver, but how do you sort of look just at this Syracuse team first and foremost before we dive into the matchup?
There's a lot of questions offensively. You got 2 guys that really played for him last year coming back on the offensive side of the football. Who's going to be the quarterback? But I think there's enough talent there. And Fran Brown's a great recruiter. I mean, he was the number 1 recruiter in the country when he was at Georgia before he moved over to Syracuse. Goes out and gets a Fadil Diggs, a Kyle McCord, and a litany of other guys who ended up being big producers for him. So they lost a couple of big ones in the portal, like Trevor Pena going to Penn State hurts. Murad Watson going to Texas, those things hurt. But I think this is a team that's got excellent culture, and they're going to play hard. The question that I have, Cole, is will they throw the ball as much as they did a year ago? There's nobody in the country that threw the ball more than Kyle McCord last year. Do you do that with Ricky Collins or Steve Angeli? Or do you evolve to run the ball a little bit more? They had a great running back in LaQuint Allen last year. but they kind of opted to use the short passing game as the run game with Kyle McCord. So will they do that? I actually think that kind of, if they still throw the ball as much as they did, especially in the short passing game, actually that probably favors them a little bit in this Tennessee matchup. I don't think Tennessee is the bunch where you're going to put on your big boy britches and say, hey, look, I know we didn't run the ball last year, but this is the year we're going to run the ball. Like, let that develop over the course of the season, because Tennessee is going to be excellent up front. We know that. The fact that they are accustomed to throwing the ball as a supplement to their run game, or really the primary run game that they have is short passes, I actually think helps them in this one. The question is, can they complete it at a high enough clip with Steve Angeli or Ricky Collins?
So I love Tennessee's D-line, and they had massive departures, massive losses, but Bryson Eason coming back, Davin Hobbs, Jackson Moy. And I know you had James Pierce last year. You don't have that kind of twitch, but I think you got a couple of guys off the edge, Joshua Joseph specifically, that are going to be fine. Can the Syracuse O-line hold up? Just whether it is, like you said, that quick pass game or pushing the ball down the field, trying to, or even wanting to try to run the ball. Is that a matchup that they can even neutralize, in your opinion?
I think they can neutralize it, especially with the short passing game. I think they can neutralize it a little bit. I don't think they're going to win consistently. They're replacing 3 starters on that offensive line. Demetrius Weatherspoon's back. He's a Howard transfer 2 years ago. He comes back at right tackle. But I think up front they're going to have to play some games there, or they're going to have to mask a couple of deficiencies. I just don't have faith, because there were teams that got after him a little bit last year. You saw it. You saw it in a couple games. I mean, Virginia Tech had a defensive line that was pretty good that got after him a little bit. That game went to overtime, and there were a couple others last year where you looked and you thought that Kyle McCord was hiding some of the holes that they had. Right. So no, I don't think they're going to win that consistently. But can they neutralize it? I've got faith. I've got faith in Jeff Nixon and that offensive staff. And whoever they go with at quarterback, they're going to have a good option. The thing is, they just got to understand that internal clock has to be sped up a little bit against a group like Tennessee.
Structurally, they'll be primarily 4 down on defense, but playing in space, because Tennessee's going to try to put you in conflict. And they want to run the ball first, but they do that by forcing you to remove those defenders from the tackle box. Is that a place you think that defense can be comfortable kind of living, where it's either playing, in the alley and taking half the side of we're going to play the run or we're going to play the quick game? How do you think they match up just from that perspective?
Yeah, so they lose Justin Simmons, which is a big one in that. He was a great tackler, great in the open. Justin Barron, who is a great tackler and great in space. They do get Deuce Chestnut back, a guy who is a boomerang. Started at Syracuse, went to LSU, and came back. He's playing safety now, as opposed to what he played at corner at Syracuse initially and then at LSU. But I think that is where they're going to have to be great. You're going to have to tackle in the open field. You're going to have to stop the run, sometimes with light boxes. And to be honest, with Marlowe Wax departing, and we mentioned Murad Watson, who's going to Tennessee. That is a big question that I have. Fadil Diggs, another guy who played a bunch of different places for him, like was a down lineman at defensive end, was an off-ball linebacker when they went to some of their odd stuff. I think those are some of the questions that they're going to have to answer. Will they play structurally the same way with Elijah Robinson, who had Fadil Diggs move around who move around all over the place? Will they use someone in that way? Will they use someone like they used Justin Barron, who was kind of their do-it-all, played down in the box at linebacker, played back at safety, sort of an apex defender sometimes between the tackle box and the inside receiver? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. I think they're in pretty good hands with Deuce Chestnut back. Barry Buxton's back as well. So I think they've got some pieces that could be pretty good. But there's a potential they could be relying on a freshman at one of the corners, Demetrius Samuel, the two-way player, who they're kind of touting as their Travis Hunter. I do caution people, like, Travis Hunter's one of one. Like, that dude, it doesn't matter. You can play both ways, and you're not going to be Travis. So you can play both ways well, and you're not going to be Travis Hunter. But they're hopeful that Demetrius Samuel will be a good player for him. There's potential he could start at one of the corners. And again, I don't think that's a recipe for success against Tennessee.
All right, let's move to the next game, ACC versus SEC, week 1. And this one, not short on attention. Alabama will be at Florida State. Another big line, Alabama 13.5-point favorite. And there's a couple teams in the SEC, Roddy, that I talked about at Media Days last week. And Greg and I on our show in Birmingham have mentioned all year that we just can't put our finger on. We just don't know. Alabama's not one of them, but goodness gracious, Florida State has to be one of those teams for you guys where it's just, I don't know what you're going to look like. Now, Gus Malzahn comes in with Thomas Castellanos, and you got an idea of, okay, Q run, very heavy there, maybe up the tempo a little bit. But where I get super confused is that that's not Mike's offense.
Right.
And I know they work together, but it's like, that gap scheme, run attack out of the gun that Mike Norvell has utilized for so long. And you see like even Ryan Silverfield still at Memphis just running the same stuff the same way. That's not really Gus. Yeah. I'm most confused, Roddy, is just how that's going to operate together and what the offense is going to look like.
There's been a lot of talk in ACC country about how Gus Malzahn is a mentor of Mike Norvell's and how this synergy is going to be perfect. And I agree with you. The run schemes just don't fit as well as I think people think they do. And so what will we see? And I think we'll know early on, like if it's a lot of inside zone read stuff, then Gus Malzahn has the reins of the offense. Mike Norvell has turned it over. But if you start to see a lot of the gap scheme, then are we in a situation where it's like Jimbo Fisher at Texas A&M, where it's like a little bit of Petrino, a little bit of Jimbo, a little bit of Steve Adazio, a little bit of James Coley, and it doesn't really fit. It's sort of a Frankenstein. My guess is if you're going to get Thomas Castellanos, then you are going to turn the reins over to Gus Malzahn and say, go for it. Quarterback run, which it was not a huge part of Mike Norvell's offense once they got good. Like before they were good, of course, you saw a bunch of it with Jordan Travis. Once Jordan Travis got good throwing the ball, and once they got good running the ball, without the quarterback run consistently, there wasn't a lot of quarterback run. The runs for Jordan Travis came off schedule on pass plays. So I think if you get Thomas Castellanos, you're giving the reins over to Gus. You're going inside zone. You're going outside zone. You're going quarterback read. You're going quarterback run. So I am curious about that. And I think Castellanos, I mean, look, he was a 1,000-yard rusher 2 years ago at Boston College. And there wasn't a ton of quarterback run in that offense either. He's going to get his in the quarterback scramble game. But in seeing him at Media Day, he's a little bigger than I remember. I saw him 2 years ago in person. I didn't see him at all last year. He's a little bigger than I remember. He's just shy of 6 foot, but he's a little thicker than I remembered him being. So I think he's sort of gearing up to do that. And look, he has heard the comparisons of Nick Marshall and kind of said it. We've been watching some Nick Marshall and some of these cut-ups. So I think Gus has the reins of the offense.
All right, guys, don't forget about my friends at Roback. Right there, you see it. Cole 20 going to save you 20%. That's the promo code, Cole 20. Roback makes clothes for kids now. They got the little bitty guys covered. So back to school, go to roback.com right now, check them out, see what they can do for you, and maybe not only get you geared up, but get the little man in your house geared up and suited up. I know my wife saw this. She's like, give me this. We need this for the boys heading back to school. Go ahead and get them ready. I love Roback. This tech tee right here we got going, I could wear these every day of the year. They are fantastic. Go to roback.com, see what they can do for you. Hoodies, T-shirts, quarter zips, hats, belts, shorts, pants. They got it all. Go to roback.com and upgrade your wardrobe today and use promo code COLE20 to save 20%. Okay. I think Alabama's offensive line has a chance to be pretty good. We still need to see some pieces of it come together. They're not going to be as strong a tight end as they were a year ago. We don't really know exactly how quarterback's going to look with Ty Simpson, but I do think that up front, physicality is where they're going to lean a little bit more with Ryan Grubb back. Probably want to be a little more downhill. They got to that at times last year. Mm-hmm. But with what's coming in and what you know is already there, if Alabama did want to go ground and pound early, protect Ty Simpson, sort of begin to impose their will, show people that's who they're going to be, can they be that against Florida State week 1?
I think Florida State's going to be pretty good on the defensive front. I think Darrell Jackson's good in the middle. Deontay McCray coming over from Western Kentucky was really, really good. James Williams was very good at Nebraska. So they've got some pieces. Depth is a question just because of the amount of guys that they're bringing in, but they've got some pieces to be pretty good up front. They've got a new defensive coordinator in Tony White, who was primarily an odd front guy. Certainly at Syracuse, was much more multiple. At Nebraska with more weapons. What does he morph that into at Florida State? I think is a big question. I think either way they'll be good. I respect Tony White a lot and what he's able to do defensively. He's from that Rocky Long tree. So the multiplicity is there. Just how does it fit this group? That's what we're not really sure of. The linebacker group hasn't been a strength for Florida State in a couple of years. I don't think it'll be a strength of this group, but I think it'll be solid. And then secondary wise, there's really nowhere to go but up. I mean, Fintrell Cypress and Azareye'h Thomas were pretty good. Fintrell Cypress didn't play as well the last 2 years in that Florida State defense as I think people hoped that he would. He was solid. But he wasn't the game breaker that people thought he was coming out of Virginia. Azareye'h Thomas didn't play to his talent last year. Some of that was the entire defense. Like that team, it's kind of hard to judge, man, because that team quit. And I'm not saying like Fintrell Cypress did or Azareye'h Thomas, but as a whole, they started shuffling in freshmen, getting guys reps, and it was tough to watch down the stretch. So it's hard to know just how much they're losing. You may lose a really good player like Azareye'h Thomas and actually be better at the position because the morale is better and everybody just wants to be there. So I think Alabama can have success. I think Alabama's offensive line is going to be excellent. But Florida State's defensive line should be the strength of the defense. So if Alabama wants to go ground and pound, it'll be a great test to see if indeed that Florida State defensive line is the strength.
Well, maybe – you look at Isaiah Horton coming in, Jeremy Bernard back, Ryan Williams. Maybe that's the key here is can the Florida State secondary hold up and be that? We saw Alabama's defense struggle a little bit with some of the decision-making on the perimeter, mainly against Vanderbilt. A couple other times, there wasn't a lot of teams that offered that up. And then down the field some. Would that be your key for Florida State here is, hey, you got to mix it up outside, force those guys to make some decisions, and find your shot plays, take them, and hope that Alabama has some busting coverage like they did a year ago.
Yeah, I absolutely, and I think the advantage that Florida State's going to have going into this game is Gus Malzahn and Mike Norvell. Like it's sort of a wild card on what they're going to look like 100%. Offensively. So can you throw in enough to make them think, hey, these are the Mike Norvell keys, these are the Gus Malzahn keys, without straying very far from what you're doing schematically or what you want to be schematically. And especially early on, can you find some of those matchups? And they have pieces like Squirrel White. Obviously, we've seen it in the SEC. Yeah. The dude can burn. Now he's got to be more consistent, but the dude can burn. Deuce Robinson was phenomenal in his freshman year at USC. Mm-hmm. How do they use him is another big question because I don't think he's quite a tight end, but he's got a big enough body where you can put him in some of those tight end spots. And then what do you classify him as when it comes to personnel?
That offense had Johnny Wilson a couple of years ago. You can use that guy in that role, so they know how to do it. Okay,
very similar. So, and then the running back room will be fine. Like Rodell Williams is back. I don't think you're going to have any game breakers there. Lawrence Toafili's gone, but that running back room will be okay. So ultimately, when you look at Florida State, the weapons that they've retooled the outside with, I think this is a group that could be pretty good offensively and offensive line. They retooled the whole offensive line and they brought in a bunch of guys with experience. Like not all of them played at the highest level, but all of them have played a lot of football. And so if you're going to retool an offensive line in this era of college football, which I'm not super high on, like I don't think you can have a great offensive line out of the portal. But if you're going to get close to it, you might as well get guys that have experience. So at least they've seen the speed of the game over and over. Now it's different against that Alabama front because that Alabama front, that's the thing about Thomas Castellano saying what he said in the offseason. Like the offensive line is the one that's going to have to cash that check. Like good luck to that group because that Alabama front, I mean, what, they have 2 first-rounders probably on that defensive line?
Well, that's the other part about the offense and which way it goes. Gus's offense is very forgiving with the offensive line. I'll just say that. You do not have to be a dominant group and necessarily move people in that offense. Now, Norvell can be with a lot of the gap scheme stuff. You're blocking back, you're pulling. That doesn't take, Quentin Nelson, Trey Smith necessarily to be successful, but you will run, like you said, some of that inside-outside zone, and that takes continuity. That takes reps together to be good at, and those guys obviously not going to have it. So that'll be a fun one. The one that I think gets the most attention so far this offseason is going to be LSU at Clemson. First off, at Clemson, which not a lot of these we're going to talk about today are going to be true road games. Bama will be in one in Tallahassee. Clemson will have LSU at home for that one. Clemson right now, 3.5-point favorite. If you put me up to it right now and say, give me your national title winner, I'd probably give you Clemson. I'm really high on that football team. Thought Klubnik took massive steps a year ago. We know you have to have a dominant D-line, or at least close to dominant, a really good D-line to win a national title. I think they have that. we'll go through some concerns with LSU and how the matchup might fare there. But what are your real concerns with Clemson right now, as far as maybe getting to where I truly believe they can go?
There's one concern, and it's running back. That's the only concern I have about this football team. Maybe safety, but I think defensively they're going to be good enough there, and they're going to be so good up front where that may not matter. You just have to be okay at the safety position. But running back,
who's the last team that we looked at, Roddy, and said, God, if they just had a great safety, they could have won a national title. Like,
exactly.
Nothing again. Like I said this last week on the pod, I was like, here's the thing with safety in college football. People either know everything about them and they're really good, like Minkah Fitzpatrick or Caleb Downs, or nobody knows who the hell they are.
Exactly.
It's one or the other.
And
so
for Clemson, Khalil Barnes is they played him at nickel a lot last year. But if Tom Allen wants to play him at safety, you can do that. I think they'll be fine there, dude. And I agree. Like, you don't have to have a game breaker there. I don't have another concern. Running back is it, because Jay Haynes, who was their backup a year ago to Phil Maffa, tore his ACL late in the season. There's questions on whether or not he's going to be available early on. And then they're going to rely on a lot of young guys. They got a really big freshman in Gideon Davidson, I think. That's coming in very highly touted, true freshman who they think is going to be really good. But do you want to throw him out there against LSU week 1? Probably not. I think that's more likely a guy that you want carrying the ball against LSU in the college ball playoff. So he's got a season of experience under him. But when you look at the recipe of national champion, the last few years, really good offensive line, which Ohio State had after, a year of turmoil, they solidified it to a really good offensive line. Obviously, Michigan had one. Really good defensive line. Both of those teams had it. Clemson is in that vein, and Clemson is probably more talented from a NFL draft standpoint than Ohio State was a year ago with TJ Parker and Peter Woods. Both of those guys are projected as first-round picks. And then Will Helt, too, coming over from Purdue.
People are going to hate that comment, by the way, but look where Sawyer and Tuimalau came off the board. Like, it's a very fair statement when you say it that way. Like, those guys were great college football players and might be in the league for a while, but those two that you just mentioned for Clemson, like they're different specimens. Like they're different dudes.
TJ Parker is getting buzz for number 1 overall. He plays the right position. He may be the first guy off the board at that position. And look, I am not sitting here saying in July predicting who's going to go number 1. Just telling you from an NFL perspective standpoint, from an NFL prospect standpoint, Clemson's got the dudes. And then you're looking for a team with good quarterback play and double-digit NFL draft picks. Like, that's what the past 3 national champions have had. Georgia, good quarterback play, double-digit NFL draft picks, good defensive line, good offensive line. Obviously, Ohio State, Michigan, both of those. And Clemson's got that because I think that team is loaded. So that's really the only concern that I have is the running back position and how that comes to fruition.
So even if safety is a little bit of an issue for Clemson, I mean, the matchup most likely because LSU, not just at times, but a lot of the time last year, point blank refused to hand the football off.
Yeah.
And one of my most frustrating comments that I got multiple times at SEC Media Days last week, people are going to think all I do is SEC Media Days, by the way, because I've referenced it like 5 times. But it was LSU's offensive line couldn't run block last year. And it drives me crazy. Because my response immediately is say, well, did they get a chance to prove it?
Yeah.
Because you go A&M game, Alabama game, and it's like 12 yards, 18 yards, 8 yards, 4 yards, 6 yards, 12 yards, and then just don't run it again to the fourth quarter. Mm-hmm. So I can't blame the offensive line for that when that's the case, when you don't give them a chance to impose their will. But the matchup's going to be down the field. And the advantage for Clemson there has to be that D-line you just mentioned against an offensive line that had 3 guys get drafted.
Yep.
One guy drafted extremely high. Another one I think is going to play for a long time. Both tackles, by the way. They got to get to Garrett Nussmeier. If they do that, I think point blank, Clemson wins this football game.
Could not agree more. And we had the conversation about LSU's offensive line last year because I saw you and was like, hey, man, like what is up with that? They should be able to do it. And you very astutely were like, hey, man, I don't think they're being allowed to. I don't think they're giving them the opportunities. So does LSU change that? I don't know. I think you have to in this game. I don't think you can let TJ Parker and Will Helt just tee off on Garrett Nussmeier. And for anybody who thinks that LSU just has a massive advantage, LSU's receivers are going to have any kind or a massive advantage over Clemson's defensive backs. Avion Terrell is an NFL corner. Ashton Hampton is 6'3", 200 plus pounds, long. He's going to play in the NFL. He's a sophomore. And Jaden Lucas has been around a long time and just knows he's probably the weakest of the bunch from a talent standpoint. But those other two, man, like those two dudes are going to play on Sundays. And Avion Terrell is looked at right now as a guy who could go in the first round. He doesn't have the size or the length. He's the younger brother of AJ Terrell. He doesn't have the size, but he plays like the younger brother. Like that dude is scrappy, and I love the way he plays. So I think Clemson's front, even if they can't get to Garrett Nussmeier initially, if LSU continues to throw the ball, there's going to be enough resistance from those corners to be able to challenge or to be able to allow Clemson's front to get after him a little bit. And then the big wild card is Tom Allen coming over from Penn State. He doesn't have Abdul Carter with the twitch and the slipperiness, but TJ Parker's maybe not as effective a rusher, because I don't think anybody's as effective as Abdul Carter, but he's close. Like we said, he's very highly rated when it comes to NFL perspective. So I do think you could see some similarities from what you saw last year. I don't know that this defensive line is as deep as Penn State's was. You had Denai Dennis Sutton, Amin Vanover, like they rolled probably 8 guys. We'll see if it has that depth, but I think at the top, talent is very similar.
You guys have heard me talking about Game Day Men's Health a lot over the last couple of months. Well, they got a new location in Trussville here in Birmingham. So if you need that, it's going to be there for you. Also, multiple locations popping up around the Southeast. So what you need to do, if you're feeling tired, if you're feeling on edge, if you're lacking sleep, lacking energy, go to GameDayMen'sHealth.com right now. Sign up for the free consultation. Find a location near you. You're going to sign up for that free consultation. You're going to go in. You're going to get a free PSA test, a free testosterone test, and they're going to tell you what your baseline health is right now. They have multiple weight loss programs they can help you out with. They also have the peptides that are in stock. They're going to concoct those, mix those for whatever your body needs, because your body quits making those peptides over time, and they're going to get those things going back in. A lot of different ways that they can help your life, your day, your everything be better at Game Day Men's Health. So just go to GameDayMen'sHealth.com right now. Sign up for that free consultation. Take advantage, see what they can do for you. Dennis Sutton was the first one I mentioned when you said no Abdul Carter, because he almost became the star for Penn State when Carter was out. So it's almost, you have to say, well, Allen also knows how to find those matchups and get his guys in position to make plays. I want to flip it around, though, because I think this is probably where people should be focusing. And I know Clemson's got everybody back on the offensive line. And most years, not every year, most years we hear this time of year, well, it's going to be different this year. This group's ready to be different. I think it was 2 years ago, they actually had a little more oomph when you watch them. It was like, oh, like right tackle actually comes off the ball a little bit here. Like they do have a chance to move some people, and it faded a little bit. And the other part would be if LSU is healthy, because you need Whit Weeks healthy. You need Harold Perkins healthy, regardless of what the roles are or how they're utilized. This is a havoc defense. They're going to give you every look, every stunt, every move. And you bring in a Jack Pyburn, who I think is perfect for that style of defense. Can the Clemson O-line handle all of that? Just plain and simple, if those guys are healthy and you know the different things that they're going to be getting up front.
If they can't, then we should worry, because, as you said, Clemson's got the entire offensive line back. Second year under Matt Luke as the offensive line coach. Third year with Garrett Riley. They ran Garrett Riley's offense much better last year. The Riley offense runs counter, and they ran it a lot better last year, both traditional counter and quarterback counter. And Cade Klubnik was much better running the football too. So I'm gonna say yes. I'm gonna give Clemson's offensive line the benefit of the doubt. I think they can figure that out. And I think they can be a group that's good enough to neutralize what LSU does up front. And if they do, this receiving core, I mean, it's one of the top, I would say, 3 receiving cores in the country. Obviously, Ohio State and Alabama probably 1 and 2 with what they have at the top. But Antonio Williams has been a phenomenal player for Clemson the last 3 seasons when he's been healthy. The 2 freshmen a year ago, Bryant Wesco and TJ Moore, were kind of just what they needed. And they're going into their sophomore year. Wesco, extremely smooth route runner, great burst, great hands. And TJ Moore, I think, has a higher ceiling than people would give him credit for because of his size. He's probably 6'3", 220. I don't know what he's listed at. Let me see. What's he listed at? 6'3", 200. I don't know. He looks bigger than 200 to me. He's a big dude. And I think if he's more consistent at the catch point and using his body, he's going to be phenomenal. And let's not forget, they get Tyler Brown back, their leading receiver 2 years ago, who was out all last year, plays basically the same position as Antonio Williams. So you've got depth there. They brought in Tristan Smith Trenton Simpson was a linebacker a few years
Yeah.
ago. Tristan Smith, the receiver from Southeast Missouri, bigger bodied guy, and he's going to be a rotational piece for him, but he gives him sort of a different look at that receiving core. So if the offensive line can manage the havoc, if they can manage all the looks that they'll get and people coming from all over the place, then yeah, I think Clemson can have some success on the outside.
You kind of brought it up with quarterback counter. I think Klubnik's legs, if this game's competitive, his legs are the difference.
Yeah.
You find a way, make Jack Pyburn, make Harold Perkins wrong, Weeks on the outside maybe, find a way where somebody doesn't blitz the right gap, loses a little bit of contain, turn that into a big first down conversion. Whatever that is, designed, leaving the pocket, keeping plays alive. And honestly, Nussmeier's legs too. He told me in media days it's been a big emphasis because he flat out didn't use them last year. Like the guy refused to leave the pocket a lot of the time. And when he did, would not cross the line of scrimmage. And that's going to have to change too, especially against a D-line like this. Like you got to move. And if you do get him out of position, you get him too far upfield, take your 6 yards and slide. Take your 4 yards and slide. Pick up the first down. Start that play clock over and keep that drive alive. Those two things with those two quarterbacks, I feel like going to be massive in this game.
And to your point, Cole, last year against Georgia to start the year, Cade Klubnik improved so much over the course of the year, but last year against Georgia, there were opportunities with his legs that he either missed or didn't take. Some of them he missed because he wasn't comfortable running counter and getting inside that kick out block. He wanted to get everything outside. He didn't trust it before he saw the block. There were opportunities there that he didn't take that could have led to maybe not an entirely different outcome, but certainly would have made the Georgia defense play differently. And so I think they will be huge. And then on the Nussmeier front, I do think that when you look at those two guys and the amount of throws Garrett Nussmeier made under pressure, the amount of times Garrett Nussmeier was able to convert. I mean, just look at the end of the Ole Miss game. That to me, it could be the difference. Cade Klubnik has had moments like that. You look at the Pitt game last year. He has a big run late in that game to kind of put it away, but not as many as Nussmeier. And so the environment on the road, having that sort of experience in those big games, not that Cade Klubnik hasn't been in big games. It just hasn't. There's not the instances that jump off the top of mind. Where he has come through in those moments. Most of them happened sort of early in his career when he was still learning. I think of Florida State a couple years ago when they had the strip sack that was returned for a touchdown. Then that game goes to overtime and the decision wasn't made. I think the Miami game that same year. Last year, he didn't have as many of those where we saw him succeed in that moment. Not saying it's not there.
Right.
I saw it last year with Nussmeier. So I think that probably favors LSU, the fact that he's done it late in games.
And the other part too, you mentioned those DBs for Clemson. LSU secondary almost all new.
Yeah.
It might be better. It might be really good. We don't really know. I hadn't seen a lot of those guys in that uniform, so that'll be an interesting matchup as well. All right, let's keep rolling here. Go to the next game. Virginia Tech is going to be playing South Carolina in Atlanta, so neutral site game. South Carolina about an 8-point favorite right now. South Carolina not getting a ton of respect, I don't feel like, in the national media. Now, they're getting buzzed because of Dylan Stewart, because of Lenore Sellers, but a lot of people kind of doubt what the team can be. What do you think, sort of outside the SEC bubble, the projection, vision, I guess, view of South Carolina is right now?
I think it's drastically overshadowed by other teams in the SEC. Some of that's warranted. Like you lose the SEC Defensive Player of the Year, and you lose Nikim Manwari, and you're gonna have some questions. Offensively, they got to retool a ton around Lenore Sellers, so you have some questions. But I think if Lenore Sellers plays to his potential, there's no reason they can't achieve what they did last year.
Yeah.
So I think South Carolina is probably a little overlooked in my opinion. I saw them in the bowl game, probably, not the game to be sold on them, but you could see the pieces, and you could see the belief in Lenore Sellers, and you could see the pieces coming up. And Dylan Stewart could be the Defensive Player of the Year this year in the league. So when you have two guys that have the potential to be the Players of the Year in the league on offense and defense, I don't know how you can count that team out.
The thing that I keep hearing about South Carolina is so many guys are gone. And listen, the reason I liked them so much last year, because nobody was talking about Kyle Kennard this time last year. Right. Nobody. And I remember talking to Brent Key about him, and he kind of told me some things, but it's just like there was no buzz. There was nobody talking about Demetrius Knight. There's nobody talking about Nick Gargiulo playing center coming from the Ivy League a couple of years ago. Like, Shane and his staff do more with less out of the portal, I think, than anybody. Because we don't talk about, like, Mario Anderson was like a D2 running back a couple of years ago. He runs for 900, goes to Memphis, I think ran for 1,000 last year. Like, Joshua Simon, tight end from West Virginia. Like, they find these guys. So there's going to be 2-3 guys that are better players than we know or think right now. So I don't look at the replacement portion of that as being that big a deal. But Clayton White, who I think is vastly underrated, South Carolina's D coordinator, is going to be going up against a returning starting quarterback in Kyron Drones, who can hurt you with his legs and obviously can push the ball, has a big, strong arm. From schematically what he's going to see, what should be the biggest concern about how that Virginia Tech offense is going to operate against a deal? Like, yeah, you lose Nicky Munori, but you got DQ Smith, you got Judge Collier. Like, they have 4 or 5 guys that have played a lot in that secondary. Brian Thomas is back on the other DN spot. He's been in that defense for a while. Monkel Goodwine's been in that defense for a while. You go get Sean Murphy from Florida State. So the talent might actually be upgraded. We don't know about some of that, but there's still a lot of guys there that have been in it. And Clayton will try to scheme it up. What do South Carolina fans need to be most concerned about when the Hokies have the ball?
It's a good question. We're not entirely sure schematically what Virginia Tech's going to be. Philip Montgomery's the new offensive coordinator. He was with the Birmingham Stallions the last time he was in football, and then comes over to Virginia Tech. It's an old he's an Art Briles Baylor offense disciple. How close will they be to that? We'll see. But Kyron Drones back at quarterback is probably the thing that we need to watch the most. Was banged up for most of the latter half of last year. Talent-wise, he's not Lenore Sellers, but he's close from a talent standpoint, being able to run the football, and obviously has an incredibly strong arm. So I think if South Carolina is going to, regardless of what Philip Montgomery does, South Carolina is going to want to keep Kyron Drones in the pocket and keep his legs from beating them. That's the job number one. Make him beat you from the pocket. Now, when he's in the pocket, Brent Pry feels really good about their offensive line and how much more athletic they are offensively up front. Will that be the case? I don't know. I think they've struggled with that over the last few years. They've been an okay unit that was pretty limited because of the lack of athleticism, especially at tackle. They've got a returning starter in Benji Gosnell at tight end who's very good. They've got a couple of receivers who I'm really excited about. One is Donovan Green, and Donovan Green is for SEC fans who may not have followed the ACC. He was one of the best receivers in the ACC. Both in 2019 as a true freshman and in 2022. He's now in his 7th year of football and has really struggled with injuries the last couple seasons. A couple years of leg injuries, one a popped Achilles, the other one an ACL. But physically, like when he's at his best, 6'3", 43-inch vertical, big target, and fluid down the field. When he's at his best, he is really good. And so he's the guy that I would have circled as the one that can beat us. The rest of the offensive position group, offensive skill group, is pretty new. They lose Bashal Tootin, the running back, who was really the
really good player.
Yeah, he was the primary driver of that offense a year ago. And their top 4 receivers from last year all gone. So Donovan Green's really the one that I would have circled as the playmaker. The rest of it's a lot of, I don't know. We'll see exactly how close to what Philip Montgomery has done in the past they will be.
We'll stay on Virginia Tech because the next week they'll have Vanderbilt. So this will be sort of a combo question. Quarterback mobility, quarterback option, quarterback reads. I kind of classified those together now because I feel like you can sort of have it both ways and be similar, if not the same thing, a lot of the times. I don't know. Now, last year, I think South Carolina offered some tight end mismatches. I don't know if they're going to be that this year, but Vanderbilt will be. I mean, Vanderbilt's got to do the tight end that I'm not sure anybody in the country wants to try to match up with specifically one-on-one. And that sounds crazy because I know people are going to say, and I got this about 20 times too at Media Days, Roddy. Yeah, but it's Vanderbilt. Like, they're going back. And I'm like, hold on. They ain't going backwards.
No.
I know y'all think it's just going to be, all those other years they had that were pretty good and then they were average again. Like, I'm not saying they're going to win 10, but the whole defense is back. You upgrade the offensive line. I think they have the most underrated running back in Cedric Alexander in the SEC, one of the most in the country. And you get a tight end at 6'5" that can run, and a quarterback that, no, Diego's not the most accurate. He doesn't throw a beautiful ball, but he knows how to operate that offense, and he's a friggin' bulldog. So defensively, with Sellers doing some of those things also, how does the VT front defense sort of match up to that part of what they're going to see really in both of those games?
So more questions there. They have a new defensive coordinator in Sam Seifkes who comes over from the NFL. How far do they stray from what Brent Pry's been done in the past? I don't think it's going to be that far, to be honest with you. I think you're going to see a lot of even front. The thing that they've struggled with is fitting the run, and that really cost them last year against Vanderbilt. And it was consistent over the course of the last couple seasons. They struggled at linebacker and really entirely up front fitting the run. So if you don't do that well against Vanderbilt and play assignment football against Vanderbilt, you're going to get gashed, and then they're going to be able to create some of those mismatches down the field. I do think the defensive line with Kevin Gilliam back, I do think it could be pretty good. Keyshawn Burgos has been a solid piece the last couple seasons. I think he's poised to take a step. And then on the back end, you've got Jaden Keller and Caleb Woodson back, a couple of secondary guys. Woodson safety linebacker types that I think could help neutralize some of those mismatches. The question is how much or how quickly do they get all this together with Sam Seifkes in?
Right.
And if they don't switch, if they don't change a lot from what Brent Pry was doing in the past, and you just need a new voice to teach it, then I think you can be pretty successful. Because from a personnel standpoint, I have felt the last couple seasons that they're not quite as they have not played up to the talent level.
Right.
Particularly in the secondary, because they had guys like Mansour Delane, who was a big-time transfer in the transfer portal this year, who was excellent in the secondary. You know, they had guys like Dorian Strong was a good player as well, who's an all-ACC guy a year ago. And then up front, Antoine Powell-Ryland wreaked havoc last year. But
really
again, the run game was really the issue, fitting the run. So if they get that corrected, then I think this defense has a chance to be pretty good. And look, I don't know what the outside perception of Virginia Tech is, but from where I sit in ACC country, Brent Pry has to split these games. Like, I don't know how you can go 0-2 against two SEC teams week 1 and week 2, one of which you lost to last year in overtime, and feel comfortable the rest of the year. The other thing, Cole, that I'll throw in there is Virginia Tech has been terrible, and I mean like god awful in one-score games under Brent Pry. They're 1-12 in one-score games since Brent Pry's been the head coach. It's like a statistical anomaly. Like, at some point, some of these coin flips have to go your way. They have to get that corrected if they're going to win.
If that was Nebraska, we would just automatically count those as wins for the next year.
That's true.
Every year we just say, well, they lost 4 by one score, so that's 4 automatic wins next year. We've been doing that for 5 years now.
The other thing about Virginia Tech, though, and I wanted the positive spin, is they weren't far away. They play Vanderbilt to overtime, which, coin flipping overtime, if it goes their way, then that's a 7th win. They won the Miami game on the field. Like, they had the game won. Then upon replay, the Hail Mary overturned, boom.
It's a lot.
They lose the game. They're 2 plays away from being an 8-win team. And then there's some others in there that you can point to. Syracuse was an overtime game. Again, if they get one more play, they're a 9-win team. Look, I know ifs and buts, but like, this team is not far away from being a pretty good football team.
You had some physicality on that O-line too. The 2 kids from West Virginia kind of get after it. So I like the mentality you go after there. All right, so we'll move on from that one. Go down from week 2 to week 3. Texas A&M, Notre Dame. I'm going to make this one really easy because I don't think either coordinator, and I have a lot of respect for both, specifically Denbrock, are going to put this game in the hands of their quarterbacks, new-ish quarterbacks. I'm not sold 100% on Marcel Reed just yet, but I will tell you this, Roddy, I like the A&M offensive line a lot.
Yeah.
They got a chance to be sporty. And if the backs are healthy, which you would imagine that early in the year probably will be, those guys can tote it. Now, Notre Dame will counter that with a damn good offensive line and Jeremiah Love and company, who is a top 3 running back overall in college football, if not the guy right now. On the other side of the ball, Notre Dame lost a lot. And they had some guys like Riley Love up front that you just love watching play football last year.
Mm-hmm.
Those guys are going to move on. Can that Notre Dame front 7 withstand a power rushing attack from A&M and just be able to deal with that enough to be able to find a way to win this game?
If Texas A&M's offensive line is as good as you think it is, and is if it continues the trajectory that we've seen, I think that's the way that you attack Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame is going to have to win games, especially early in the year, running the football and controlling the clock. Look, they play Miami week 1, and Miami is going to do. Miami brings a front offensively and defensively that'll be a pretty good test for Notre Dame.
Oh, yeah. Going
to Texas A&M. That offensive line that Miami has should be one of the best in the ACC. It's got a couple of guys that are going to play in the league, and then the defensive line. If Clemson wasn't in the ACC, it would be the best defensive front in the ACC. Not by far, because Duke's got a really good front as well. But look, it's a really good group. So we'll learn a lot about Notre Dame early on. I think their offensive line should be fantastic. The defensive line is where the questions are.
Yeah.
And I do think from a front seven standpoint at the linebacker level, they should be fine. But defensive line wise, they just had like guys like Riley Mills. Like that guy was just so, like, he was a heart and soul type guy. Harold Cross,
dude,
heart and soul type guy.
I mean, I think I said Riley Love. I'm not sure what I said, but I mean, Mills, dude, he was just, I remember talking to him after the Orange Bowl. They were standing around. We were waiting to do some interviews, and he was over there on crutches. And I was like, hey, man, I just want to tell you, like, I know how bad it sucks for you to not be out here, but God, right. I love watching you play football. I mean, specifically when you punch a dude in the face mask who's on the ground, like, I'm all for that, number one. But like you said, here, I guess if I'm a Notre Dame fan, here's the good news. Rubio had to play a lot towards the end of the year.
Yeah.
And yes, from a depth perspective, they were holding on by dear life. But like he and Heinisch both played a decent amount and kind of got it done when they had to have them get it done. And Bryce Young could be a freaking maniac. Like
yes.
If there's a dude on this team that most people don't know that has a chance to just literally explode and everybody be like, why weren't we talking about him? He's a first player off the bus guy, and I think has the ability to maybe be that dude by the time the year is over with.
And look, the guys, you are exactly right about Bryce Young. He is the one that if you get into a passing situation, you are terrified of. And so that's what A&M has to avoid. The guys that are coming back, like a Donovan Heinisch, that got thrust into action last year, got some really valuable reps. Like the Texas A&M stage is not going to be too much for them. It's not going to be the biggest stage that they played on because they played in the college ball playoff and in the national championship game last year. The thing is, we just haven't seen them do it on a play in, play out basis.
Yeah.
Drake Bowen at linebacker is fantastic. You look at some of the guys that they get back in that secondary, like a Leonard Moore, like an Aiden Schuler, very, very good. Now you lose Benjamin Morrison and Xavier Watts.
Xavier Watts is a real deal. Yeah.
Massive departures. Xavier Watts was phenomenal. He's one of the only guys that I saw run down Travion Henderson in the alley last year. There was a play in the national championship game where Travion Henderson breaks, and I'm like, that's it. That's done. It looked like Texas. Like nobody's going to catch him. Xavier Watts caught him and brought him down, and they got to play another play. Now, it probably ended in the end zone because it felt like every Ohio State drive at that point in the game ended in the end zone. But up front, just from a depth standpoint, like the depth guys are playing now. So from a depth standpoint, how deep are they? And then from just a play in, play out production standpoint, when you're the guy, can you hold up against a good A&M fan?
All right, guys, don't forget about my friends at Pizza Pulse. If you're trying to get back into the hobby, you want to collect cards, my boys have gotten me back into it. I'm collecting offensive line cards. I'll show you one that I just got here recently here. Oh, how about my boy Brandon Scherf, Taylor Lewan. Check that. The dual swoosh patch double auto. I'm collecting the O-line cards now. I got to get back into it. I'm going to collect the offensive linemen because nobody else cares about them. But these cards can be expensive. They can cost you a lot. So what you want to do is go get into some breaks at Pizza Pools. So you go to Fanatics Live, bam, right there. And you're going to go up and search, and you're going to find Pizza Pools in the shops. And you're going to see Pizza Pools is going to have me on every Tuesday, either Fanatics Live, pizza right there. And then shops, Pizza Pools. There it is. Boom. Hit that up right there. Topps Chrome Baseball is out. My daughter is asking for Topps Chrome Disney. So we had to get her a couple Snow White cards last week. We got those going. You got Donruss Elite, first off the line, that's out right now there at Pizza Pools. You can also catch us on Whatnot. So if you don't want to go there, you head over to Whatnot. Bam, there's the app right there. Boom. Go to the store, search for Pizza Pools, get in there, whether it's golf, soccer, baseball, football cards, basketball cards. Pizza Pools is going to have you covered. They got the Insta Rips now from Fanatics Live where you get one card already graded, massive hits in there. They got the grails you're chasing. Just go to pizzapools.com or Fanatics Live or Whatnot and searches about pizza pulls, and they're going to be breaking cards. These boxes cost us $700, $900. You can get in there for $10, $15, $8, $1 a team and chase the teams, the players that you want at pizza pulls. All right, quickly, we'll go ahead to week 4, and you just mentioned them a little bit. There's so much to fall in love with about Miami individually. You never think that Mario's going to let an offensive line not be good, and they got a ton of talent there. Even though you lose a guy or two, should be pretty good. Hell, their biggest loss might be strength coach. You know, with losing Aaron Feld and not being the guy anymore, because we know what he's meant to, you know, Oregon, Miami, assistant at Georgia, everywhere he's been, they've been really good. And he's been a big part of that. You bring in Carson Beck. I'm interested to see how he works with Shannon Dawson, because, you know, Shannon talked to us last year before the bowl game of what he kind of let Cam Ward do and wasn't sure about him actually doing. But then he was so good at it, he kind of just said, screw it, like, we got to let this guy go play football. And then also the alpha that Cam Ward was. And I mean, I talked to Restrepo, I talked to Feld, I talked to Cristobal. You hear the stories about how this guy handled himself when he got there. It's no wonder they were as good as they were. So that makes me wonder, Roddy, does Shannon have to be more hands-on, not give as much freedom? Because I just be honest, I don't think Carson's that guy, that kind of guy. And that's fine. You don't have to be, but I think Cam took it to a lot of places kind of on his own, and don't know if Carson's going to be that. There's so many new parts. It's sort of hard to tell, but just quick projection, Florida, Miami, what do you see week 4 this upcoming season?
I mean, things that, you know, Miami's going to be good on the lines of scrimmage. They offensively, if I'm Shannon Dawson, as good as Carson Beck can be, I'm building this offense around the run game, which should be excellent with Mark Fletcher and Jordan Lyle, who's a freshman last year. They are really excited about. They've got a tight end piece. They lose Elijah Arroyo. They keep a guy who could burn and was a big body, dude. Like he was 6'5", 6'6", 240, and did enough in the run game to help him out. So it's going to be more by committee to replace that. But Elijah Lofton, who was a true freshman last year, he is sort of more of the split out flex tight end. But there's talk about him running the football, so he's going to be a Swiss Army knife for him. The rest of the receiving core is a question mark. They lose all of it, so they're all new. But I would build this thing around the run game. And then you look defensively, and there was no one in the country who struggled more adjusting to pre-snap shifts and motions in Miami. Like, if you got their cleats out of the ground, they had no idea what was going on. The number of times they turned guys loose in the secondary after a simple motion across the formation was like mind-boggling. So you get a new defensive coordinator in, comes over from Minnesota. I would expect that defense to be much, much better. They retooled the entire secondary, which was needed. They lose a couple pieces at linebacker, but they've got some coming back, like Wesley Basaint, who's really good.
Yep.
But that defensive front, especially those two ends, like Ruben Bain on one side and Akeem Mesidor, who missed all of last season with a torn ACL after being phenomenal 2 years ago. Both of those guys are going to be two of the best in the ACC. So I think if that defense can be better with their pre-snap communication, can be more sound in the secondary without turning people loose, then talent-wise, the defense will be good enough to take a step. And even if the offense takes a slight step back, which I expect them to, because Cam Ward's not there to save them, even if they take a slight step back because Carson Beck has to play more on schedule and there's not as many, second play, big plays, and there's not the and they have to run the ball more. I do think this team could be better. And look, they were within a couple of big disappointments from being in a college football playoff. So I like Miami this year. I really do. I don't think they're close to Clemson, at least not right now, but I do think they should contend for a college football playoff.
I mean, I look at that Florida game, and if what you said holds true, that's trouble against Billy, because he's going to move on every play.
All the time.
They're going to shift
every play.
I mean, it might as well be Al Borges.
And with tempo.
Move the pieces. Absolutely.
And they struggled so mightily last year with it. And it was pretty consistent. And with every team, like I saw him in person against Wake Forest, and I was just floored. Wake doesn't do a lot of pre-snap shifts and motions, but they do like one, and they'd find somebody open. And I'd be like, why aren't you going back to it? Like, do that more. But it just wasn't a big part of the Wake offense. But yeah, man, if you struggle against that or with that against Billy Napier, you're in for a long day.
But the other side of that, I will say, you talk to anybody who covers Florida closely, they'll tell you their number one concern is secondary.
Yeah.
So if you can get Carson Beck going and Shannon can draw some things up, you're going to have to hold off Caleb Banks and company up front, because I think the D-line is going to be pretty good. That's a fun matchup. Yeah. Miami O-line, Florida D-line. But down the field might be where Miami can go get that game. It's going to be fun to see, man. I love it sitting here talking football, dude. Thank you so much for joining. Like, I could do this for hours. I think our listeners know it. They love it as well. And these are just some massive matchups. Some people know about, some people don't, that I wanted your insight on. You did a great job with it. So thanks for hopping on with us today.
Of course, man. Always great to catch up, brother.
There you go. Roddy White.